At the United Nations headquarters in New York, Argentina's president, Javier Milei, stepped onto the world stage with the fiery confidence that has defined his rise to power. His presence at the podium immediately commanded attention. Known for his libertarian ideology and confrontational style, Milei has never shied away from controversial statements, and this time would be no exception. From the very beginning, his words sought to resonate not only within the chamber, but across borders, setting the tone for a speech that would merge admiration, defiance, and nationalism. Milei began with a surprising tribute to one of the most polarizing figures in global politics, former US President Donald Trump. In a carefully crafted statement, he declared, "President Trump in the United States also understands that it is time to reverse a dynamic that was leading the United States to catastrophe. And we know that a catastrophe in the United States is a global catastrophe. His firm and successful policy of curbing illegal immigration makes this more than clear. He understands that he must do what is necessary, even if many do not like it, before it is too late." By explicitly crediting Trump with preventing disaster, Milei was not just endorsing a man, he was endorsing an ideology that places national sovereignty, hard borders, and economic protectionism above the globalist consensus. This praise was more than symbolic. It aligned Argentina with a growing bloc of leaders who see Trump's brand of politics not as an American phenomenon, but as part of a worldwide struggle against what they describe as decline and chaos. For Milei, linking Trump's battle against illegal immigration to the survival of the global order was a bold assertion. He suggested that the policies of one nation, especially one as powerful as the United States, ripple outward, carrying the potential to either stabilize or destabilize the world. The message was clear. Milei believes Trump prevented a collapse that would have engulfed everyone. In doing so, he positioned himself as a like-minded leader on the world stage, willing to defend hard choices against what he views as politically correct resistance. This rhetorical alignment underscored Milei's efforts to portray Argentina not as a passive observer, but as an active participant in shaping the ideological battles of the 21st century. From this global stage, Milei then pivoted back to Argentina's own struggles. With his trademark conviction, he declared, "Argentina today has a government that has decided to take the right path, even if it is the most difficult one, because the prosperity and progress of our people cannot be delayed any longer." These words reflected a domestic reality that few could ignore. Argentina is grappling with one of the worst economic crises in its modern history: triple-digit inflation, a currency losing value by the day, and social unrest boiling beneath the surface. For Milei, the right path meant austerity, deregulation, and a rejection of decades of state-driven economic policy. His statement was not just political, it was deeply personal. Milei has staked his presidency on the promise that painful reforms today will lead to prosperity tomorrow. Yet this promise is one of the most divisive issues within Argentina. Supporters argue that his bold cuts and economic shock therapy are the only way to halt Argentina's decades-long cycle of boom and bust. Critics, however, warn that his approach risks plunging millions further into poverty while enriching the financial elite. By invoking the language of sacrifice and resilience, Milei sought to cast his government as both brave and necessary, willing to endure hardship for a brighter future. But perhaps the most emotionally charged moment of his speech came when he revisited a dispute that has defined Argentina's foreign policy for generations: the Falkland Islands, known locally as the Malvinas. With unwavering conviction, Milei said, "I wish to reiterate our legitimate and inalienable claim to sovereignty over the Malvinas Islands, South Georgia, and the South Sandwich Islands and the surrounding maritime spaces that remain illegally occupied." Despite the 80 years that have passed since the creation of this organization, colonial situations such as these remain unresolved. His words tapped into a powerful nationalist sentiment, one that transcends political divisions within Argentina. This rhetorical strategy is familiar to Argentine presidents, yet Milei's delivery carried his characteristic edge. He framed the Falklands as an example of colonial injustice that persists despite decades of international progress. In doing so, he cast Argentina not only as a victim of unresolved history, but also as a symbol of nations still waiting for decolonization to be fulfilled. The statement drew quiet but significant attention. For some, it reinforced Argentina's right to continue pressing its claim. For others, it risked reopening old wounds with the United Kingdom at a time when global cooperation is already strained. Throughout the address, Milei balanced admiration for Trump with a firm defense of Argentine sovereignty and a call for internal reform. This combination revealed much about his political philosophy. To him, strength lies in defiance, whether against illegal migration, entrenched economic failures, or lingering colonial disputes. His words suggested that Argentina, under his leadership, would no longer be content with playing a secondary role in international affairs. Instead, he presented his country as a nation ready to take bold stances, regardless of whether they win applause or criticism. Yet the reception in the chamber was measured. Diplomats listened carefully, but responded cautiously. There was applause, but not thunderous. The mood was reflective, even tense. For many in attendance, Milei's open praise of Trump recalled a polarizing era in US politics, an era many world leaders remain wary of. At the same time, his sharp insistence on Argentina's sovereignty highlighted ongoing global divides, where nationalism often clashes with international cooperation. The broader significance of Milei's remarks cannot be understated. By tying his own presidency to Trump's legacy, Milei is signaling Argentina's foreign policy trajectory. He is aligning himself with leaders who reject multilateralism in favor of nationalism and bilateral strength. This alignment could shape Argentina's relationships with Washington, London, and even Latin America, where views of Trump remain deeply divided. His economic message, too, resonates beyond Argentina's borders. In an era where nations face debt crises, inflation, and social unrest, Milei's insistence on immediate reform rather than gradual adjustment challenges the dominant economic orthodoxy. If his policies succeed, they could inspire imitators. If they fail, they could serve as a cautionary tale about the dangers of radical experimentation. And his insistence on the Falklands claim reflects a wider trend at the United Nations, where unresolved territorial disputes continue to simmer decades after decolonization was supposed to have ended. From the South China Sea to Kashmir, leaders use the UN as a stage to press their grievances, reminding the world that the promises of the post-war order remain incomplete. Milei's speech fits squarely into that pattern, placing Argentina alongside other nations seeking to rewrite old narratives of defeat and occupation. In closing, Milei's address was more than just a national statement. It was a declaration of alignment, ideology, and intent. By praising Donald Trump, he signaled a preference for nationalist politics that challenge global institutions. By defending austerity, he doubled down on his controversial domestic agenda. And by demanding sovereignty over the Falklands, he tethered Argentina's modern identity to its historical grievances. For his supporters, the speech was proof of Milei's courage, a leader unafraid to speak his mind on the world stage. For his critics, it was evidence of recklessness, a president risking Argentina's credibility by attaching his nation's future to divisive figures and unresolved disputes. But regardless of interpretation, one fact is undeniable. Javier Milei has ensured that Argentina's voice will not be ignored. His words, echoing through the UN's halls, carried the weight of history, ideology, and ambition, offering the world a glimpse of how Argentina intends to navigate the turbulent waters of the present global order. However, we are not the only ones making the difficult decisions that this historic moment demands. President Trump in the United States also understands that it is time to reverse a dynamic that was leading the United States to catastrophe. And we know that a catastrophe in the United States is a global catastrophe. His firm and successful policy of curbing illegal immigration makes this more than clear. He understands that he must do what is necessary, even if many do not like it, before it is too late. Argentina today has a government that has decided to take the right path, even if it is the most difficult one, because the prosperity and progress of our people cannot be delayed any longer. I wish to reiterate our legitimate and unwavering claim to sovereignty over the Falkland Islands, South Georgia and the South Sandwich Islands and the surrounding maritime areas. I wish to reiterate our legitimate and inalienable claim to sovereignty over the Malvinas Islands, South Georgia and the South Sandwich Islands and the surrounding maritime spaces that remain illegally occupied. Despite the 80 years that have passed since the creation of this organization,